Hello and welcome back to the Leah Moses Entrepreneur Podcast, where every Monday I drop information, insights, tips, motivation, inspiration, on a business and entrepreneurship or even self-employment to empower Caribbean millennials and anyone else listening, right? So thank you for tuning in. And today I want to get into the topic of being digital in 2020 and beyond, or going digital, right, with your business. And so there are several benefits to going digital in your business. Of course, you're talking convenience, you're talking cashlessness, which is also a pro, and a security, all right, in the times we are living in, etc., etc. But I want to bring it practical because I believe in practical entrepreneurship and applying concepts to real situations. And so I will be using some examples, just to show you how this might apply to you, how this might apply to what we may deem the simplest of business models to something grand or bigger, right? So I'm not just dealing with your. This is not just something for you to consider as, well, that's for them companies and them big business and them. No, this is actually for everybody at this point in time, right? And so let's jump right in to this episode. Right, so digital. What does it mean to go digital? Well, going digital in plain terms means having your business online, aka setting up what we call e-commerce, right? Which is doing business over the internet, usually via a website, which you basically use the website to list your products or your services for people to make their purchase without you physically being there or without you initiating the sale, basically, right? And so jumping right into examples, if you sell books, you have bookstores all around town, right? And several other places, and you depend on people to physically come into your store, see these books, all right? Or even if you run ads, because you have a Facebook page for your business, you depend on people to actually come down at your store to get these books, because a lot of the businesses, we don't even have delivery services attached to your business in a lot of cases still in Trinidad and Tobago and possibly up the Caribbean as well, right? But you depend on that physical interaction for sales to be made. And so e-commerce is actually helping people now worldwide to, cut that need for that physical interaction, which is good because we're in the middle of a pandemic. In Trinidad and Tobago, the numbers are spiking once again, right? It's the 3rd of August 2020, and we are now in what we may term as our second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? And so any day now we can expect to be told that, hey, you have to go back on lockdown. These businesses are not allowed to operate. If you're not essential, you'll have to close. And these businesses a wide range of businesses. And so in my example of a bookstore, that was also a non-essential business during our first lockdown. And so you may be selling books, and you would want to have your customers still purchase your books because this is your livelihood. Let's just in our situation here, that's your only means of income. Of course, having multiple streams of income is the actual goal of everybody. I will always preach that, but that's the next topic for our next day. So you have your books and you want to limit that, or you are told, hey, you have to close, you are not essential, you cannot operate. What are you going to do? And so this is where e-commerce comes in, and those who would have had their e-commerce things set up, or those who are presently setting up their e-commerce businesses, are going to be the ones with the advantage of market share, all right? Because during the pandemic, you're home, more people, those readers would like to have something to read, right? And so we are not considering the fact that there's Amazon and Kindle and these things, right? We are just working with your physical bookstore as if those things didn't exist for a scenario, right? Of course, you can apply this to any other company or business that sells physical products, right? You have your e-commerce site. One of the benefits of that is that you don't have to operate within your time frame. Normally with your physical store, by 5 p.m., 6 p.m., you may have closed. With your e-commerce store, somebody can shop shop at your store online at midnight if they chose, right? So you can still make money while you are sleeping, right? Which is a goal of many entrepreneurs out there. You want to make money while you're sleeping, while you're on the beach, right? And so the real way to do that is simply by having your service offered online, whereby somebody can click some buttons, go through the whole transaction process automatically, and you just basically receive your notification stating that somebody made an order. Of course, with your physical products, for it to be fully online, you now would have to have a system of deliveries set up. We have several companies locally that offer the delivery and courier services for you, right, at very nice prices. And of course, we have our local TT Post that can do that for you as well if you choose. Right, so your e-commerce is definitely convenient, and it's relevant, as you can see, in the pandemic, because again, quarantine and lockdown are cousins, right, of a pandemic. It's expected, it's a must. They go hand in hand in order to as the term goes, to flatten the curve, right? And so that's why you need to be thinking of it. Now you might be saying, okay, that's well and good, I understand. For the physical things, you can have a store, have people shop, you send the products out via delivery. But I'm a service provider. How do I operate online as a service provider? Right, so now I want you to think about, of being innovative in your service, because to answer that, you have to start to think about offering your service with a little edge over the rest. And what do I mean by that? Right, so we are speaking about offering your service online, right? Offering your service online, or having your service reach customers even when you're not physically present. And so one of the things people have been doing is that they have been jumping into what we term consultations, right? Consulting, tutoring, or offering do-it-yourself information is something that the wider world has been adopting in their business. And so, there are a lot of people now who, they may not just depend. You have to move from a position of just depending on you providing the physical service, and understanding that for certain aspects of your business, you can start to, to teach, to consult, to tutor. You have the experience, you have the skill, right? A lot of the time, right, in many fields, people don't really need to call in, and you would know that for yourself according to what service you provide. People don't need to call in a professional. But if they had the option to just speak with somebody who's professional, who could actually just give you some tips or some advice as to how to fix the situation or the problem, that will solve the issue without that need for that physical, interaction, right? And so that's one of the things that you could consider. So let's say, for example, you're a mechanic, and you are very much experienced in your thing, and you know the different vehicles that we have locally or you have in your country, and you might want to now be innovative in terms of having a business that offers a service of consultation, phone consultation, in terms of helping a person to just check something, do something, make a quick tweak, see if it works, see if it helps. Sort of like what the phone company would do. When you would have experienced a problem with your device and you call into the call center, right? Yeah, you can ask for a technician to come, but before that technician decide to come, before they tell you need to bring that device or whatever into them, they will ask you to do certain things, and they were trained to tell you, if you're experienced and you know your thing inside out, you should be able to teach, as some people say, you should be able to teach your grandmother. And if you can teach your grandmother what you know, and she understands it and can tell you what you taught her, she can explain that, then you can teach it to others, right? And so you may be able to just give a little piece of advice, have somebody follow it like the phone companies did, and that might solve your problem. I personally would have had to call back in the days, the local phone, one of the local phone call package providers and these people, right, or telecommunications companies locally. And even though it wasn't a local person who used to be given the instructions, at the end of the day, when I went through the steps that I was given, I was able to fix the problem that I was experiencing, right, successfully, without having to go in, without having anybody to come to me. And so we need to start to think about that when it comes to our services, right? We can actually have consulting and tutoring businesses, which again, in e-commerce space, you can place that service option online. Allow people to call you, or to have you may have a staff member who is well versed and may be able to assist you over the phone first, right? And then, of course, even if you are thinking, well, that may not work all the time, that can be a part of your business. It doesn't have to be the entire thing, because we understand that, yes, there are problems that needs a physical a physical person to come, a professional to come and have it sorted out. But the good thing about that is that even in a pandemic, we realized where people with those hard skills were essential. All right, so even if you have a system, you may have a system where, okay, people are more skeptical to have people in their space now with this coronavirus, right? But you have your first line of business is probably a consultation call, where you can have it priced, reasonably, where somebody will say, okay, yes, I will pay 50 TT, 100 TT to get a consult to see if I can solve my problem, without having a person come. And if it's something that you really need somebody to come, then we understand that during a pandemic, those with the skills are deemed essential and can actually still go out to a client's house and so on. But the point I'm really trying to make is that you need to have your business online. You need to be able to accumulate your money. Now, in terms of the services business, as I was just mentioning, one of the other things besides being innovative to offer some sort of consultation type business, or some sort of support line to have people, do certain things themselves to solve problems. You need to understand that it's also about, even if you're doing services, you can, by doing e-commerce or by having e-commerce, you also support or offer convenience, which is a good benefit to a lot of people. You offer convenience and safety to clients, because one of the problems we notice with a pandemic, or now in this era where we are saying, people are saying that COVID might be with us for the foreseeable future, right? So we're talking possibly all into 2021, we may still be battling with COVID-19 worldwide, right? So you can offer a convenience. And what do I mean by this convenience? I know for a fact that there are people who are afraid of going to even the ATMs, because that's a public place, right? There are many people going into an ATM. Beside the security risks of, beside the safety concerns that people have with the ATM, it's also now a public place that a lot of people's hands, touching. A lot of people would have been at a particular place. You have these knobs to press, you have the door to open, and so you are risking yourself going even to the ATM, right? You're exposing yourself to the germs, right? And so there are a lot of people who don't even want to go to the ATM, and so everything, if they can, they are trying to do everything via credit card, or via online payments, in other words. And so even if you're doing a service and it doesn't have any room for being a consultant, you must be there and so on. By having e-commerce, by putting your services online, you are basically offering you're offering to the people, or to your clients, will basically be, here's what, from the comfort of your home, you can pay for my service. So you don't have to go to the ATM. And that also helps you, because now you don't have to handle all the set of cash in hand, right? And of course, if we know from the professionals that you should get your business bank account and so on, so that you have that paper trail should you need your loan and so on. That's a next topic for next time. So you shouldn't have a problem if a client is paying via card that will be deposited into your bank, immediately or within a few days, right? And so you're offering that convenience and safety to your clients, even if you do a physical business, but you have e-commerce attached to it. So you have a website, and it doesn't matter if you only offer one service. You can have your e-commerce site, and the one product you sell is electrical services, plumbing services. You have your price, or you have your variable prices or something, and people could actually pay, or you probably would charge, a standard fee, a visit fee, or whatever, and then you can always initiate, set up your course for your other services, right? Or you may categorize your services and give them a fixed price, or you can even have variable prices depending on the platform that you're using and how you set up your product offering, right? But that's more technical details. That's not what I'm trying to get into. I'm just basically highlighting that it doesn't matter if you're doing big business, medium-sized business, small business, or if you're a physical product salesperson, or you're doing a service business. Everybody can have e-commerce attached to their business model for that convenience, that safety, and just for innovation's sake. Because as I said before, if you're only sticking to physical business, things like a pandemic, right? Things like any kind of unrest, even natural disasters could basically have your business functioning at zero, right? You make nothing, right? But when you're online, there's no recession online. The pandemic is not online. It deals with that physical thing. And so that's why we even see all now that our schools have to now scramble to find ways in which teachers can educate online, because again, even in a pandemic, life has to go on. You can pause it for a certain period of time, but for how long? Before things collapse drastically for not only yourself, but for the entire country. And so this is why going digital is a must from 2020 here and beyond. And the pandemic, I guess, brought that confirmation. There's no if, buts, or maybes if you should be thinking of a way to do your things online. If you're a caterer, you can list your menus online, right? And place your availability. You can change your availability of a certain meal at your will. Just as how when you sell t-shirts, if you don't have any more of a certain size, it can say out of stock, right? You can set these things. If you know you don't offer this particular menu on a Tuesday, you can set all these things. And so even as a caterer, you can have your things online, you can collect your money online, and again, you can have your product, your food delivered, right, to your clients. And that way business is rolling along. Transport didn't stop. The physical skills didn't stop. These are essential things. And so your business can still operate, utilizing these essential services as complementary businesses to your business, right? Or if you want, you yourself could do the deliveries, right, to save on cash if you would like that. Or if you're a small business, you can do it yourself. Save money, right? So these are some of the reasons why it is, you should be going digital now. And you may be saying that's easy to say, but a lot of people don't have credit cards. And so in one of my future episodes, I'm going to get in specifically to, the options that we have here, or the options that I use, which is a local option, because we have a problem now where, PayPal no longer deposits money to your debit Visa cards. They had started and they stopped the process, right? And we, not just that, but we have a problem whereby a lot of our local banks in Trinidad and Tobago have been discontinuing the prepaid or the reloadable cards. However, because of the need and the conversation that's happening right now for going digital and going cashless, a lot of the banks are now changing their cards to be cards that can shop online. The only problem with the shopping online, it would be only online in TT dollars. So it will be able to shop locally online. So every business locally that has e-commerce set up, you would be, your normal, what you would call your normal bank card now, your Links card, your ATM card, will now have the 16 digits for you to shop online, but only where accepts TTD. So you may not be able to shop on Amazon. You will not be able to shop on Amazon because Amazon doesn't take TT dollars. Amazon takes US, which your bank formally would have had to exchange that money, exchange TTD for USD to facilitate your purchase, right? So that's the only disadvantage there. However, this is a wake-up call to the local businesses to have their business online, so that when all these ATM cards are switched over to cards that can shop online, you won't be left out, right? Especially if you have to close or lock up shop, right? Even people right now who aren't able to facilitate their rent, right? Their rental payments for their stores or their business places, going online can save you that cost, right? Especially if you're small. Even if you're big, you don't need to have a physical brick and mortar structure. And I think we here in the Caribbean are still so heavily focused on brick and mortar structures, not realizing that not everything needs a brick and mortar structure. Of course, if you're into like a restaurant business, you would want, that atmosphere and so on, and people will need to come in because that's what you do. You charge your service charge when you dine in and so on. So that's different, right? But many of the other businesses where you just come in, your customers just come in to really just purchase something and leave. These businesses, regardless of size, don't actually need to be in a brick and mortar structure. You don't need to be on the block, on the corner, or in the city, right? And so this is just something to consider today. This was about being digital. I would like to hear your questions. I guess next time I can facilitate an episode on my journey with setting up a website via WordPress, and not the free WordPress, not wordpress.com, but wordpress.org, with my local web host, as well as the local payment option that we have, which is WePay, which you can integrate on your sites to have your customers pay you in TTD, and you have that money deposited right to your business bank account. All right, so probably next time we can get into these specifics, but I want to know your thoughts on online business. The business that you're doing, are you thinking about going online, right? Are you afraid to go online? Are you already online? How is it going? I would like to hear this kind of feedback. Of course, feel free to reach out to me at my social media platforms at Leah CL Moses. That's across Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and my website www.leahclmoses.com, where you can find everything all in one. All right, so thank you for listening to this podcast today, and see you next week for the next one.